Welcome back to another episode of Life with Lamb. Today I'm here with Gemma Mullins. Gemma, also known as Coach Gemma, is the founder of Uplift Movement, a female coaching service who trains out of Emerge. And I saw her content floating around a lot over Instagram through Emerge Gym, and sort of saw her floating around the gym as well, and was really curious to see what she was all about. Found out you had 10k followers. Like, wow, what is happening there? And fortunately, I've got you on the podcast today. So welcome, Gemma.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me. I just wanted to, I'd love to have a chat today and deep dive into anything you've got questions about. I've also seen you rolling around the gym, and I just love doing stuff like this, and I love the online coaching space, and especially coaching women.
Amazing. Beautiful story. And I think I reached out to you a while back, and we did have a chat at the gym, and your story sort of lit me up a little bit about how you initially started in the corporate world actually, and have somehow managed to make your way over to coaching and building this online brand and persona that is Coach Gemma. Early days, did you ever think that you'd be doing this?
I definitely didn't think this when I was in uni studying business. It was a pivot completely, and it just was going side by side with what my hobbies were at the time. So I was kind of waking up in the morning, doing the 1,000 steps in the Dandenongs, and then going into an office and working a 9 to 5. And I was kind of getting around the corporate culture and trying to get people to walk at lunchtime and have a fruit bowl at work. And I was kind of incorporating those healthy habits that were crossing over with my life, with my work. And then I just had a moment where it was becoming such a large part of my life that I thought that maybe I could make something of this. I didn't imagine it to have become Coach Gemma being an actual kind of brand in itself, and being what I'm known for, but I'm loving the direction that it's gone in, and it's a lot of it's just come from trial and error and finding what it is that I enjoy. But yeah, uni to now, I wouldn't have thought that it would have ended where it is today. Beautiful.
And you are this persona online who presents themselves as someone who's really confident, and like a female empowering other women in the gym is I'm all for it. Yeah. It's such an amazing concept, and I think more women need to do it.
Yeah.
I guess have you always been that way, like this confident, extroverted, from what it seems like on the outset person?
No, I'm definitely an introvert. I find that I love people, but after being around group environments for a certain period of time, my social battery will get really low, and then I'll just want to tap out in the nicest way possible just to recharge. So I think that me coming across as this confident person online, I definitely feel it when I'm speaking about things that I'm passionate about, but it also just comes with a lot of practice and a lot of kind of telling myself that you just need to show up to get better at anything. I remember when I first joined a gym maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I was so anxious about not knowing what to do in a gym, such a far cry from where I am today. But this example would be, this was a double-story gym. There was a female-only section on the left bottom floor, and I had a membership for this place for 8 months, and I never went to the second story just because I was scared, right? So it's like you don't just get to becoming confident and, feeling empowered in the gym. And I know that it might not seem that easy. It's definitely not. It takes reps, it takes practice. But what I try to get across to my clients and to anyone that will listen is the only way to overcome that barrier of feeling that way is by, 1, finding an environment that you feel comfortable in, 2, just showing up and pushing past that little bit of discomfort, because that graduated exposure is what's going to make you feel like you belong in a gym.
Beautiful. So you studied business and event management at university. Can you talk to us a bit about the motivations behind why you picked that degree or that course? Like, was it parents' motives, or was it outside noise? Was it something that you had to do?
I'm an only child, and neither of my parents had gone to uni. So I knew that it would be something that would make them very proud to be like the first person in my family to go to uni out of that little dynamic there. Because I kind of felt like it was just something that they really were striving for me. I also wanted to do something in uni, but I wasn't really that, some people are like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It wasn't really like that. It was just kind of like a business is a broad topic, and I'm sure I'll figure out when I'm there what it is I really enjoy. From there, event management always seemed interesting because of organizing things, and I just think my personality type suits the chaos of events. It's like organized chaos. And that kind of went hand in hand with me working at a Melbourne and Olympic Parks and Hisense and all of those arenas. I was doing kind of merchandise and customer service and patron services. So I was kind of just dipping my feet in the water to figure out what events would look like for me. And I still really enjoy events, but it just not as much as I enjoy fitness. So I liked the skills that I got from business. They're always going to cross over to whatever I do, running a business, the back end stuff, admin, all of that kind of thing, business planning. So I think that kind of gave me a good foundation for what I'm doing today. But I can't imagine working in a traditional business type role or corporate setting ever again.
Definitely. I love that narrative of, I'll just choose business as this holistic approach. And going into it, I myself am experiencing that at the moment. So studying a Bachelor of Commerce because I guess I got the scores to do it. It's something that's very reputable and well respected among the community. But it's like that difficulty of navigating what exactly is it that I want to do. Like, I'm just picking this course for the sake of it. And I think the university does provide opportunities where you can sort of choose a little bit of everything and then narrow in eventually, but it's still gotten to that end point as to, hey, like I've done all this, but I haven't really quite hit the nail on the head yet. Like what, and it's almost like, what's wrong with me? Yeah. What am I doing wrong? Did that ever come across with yourself?
I kind of just felt like, again, it's very broad. What do I actually want to do long term and what am I finding fulfillment out of? I still enjoyed that experience, but it's the same with when you do anything study versus real life. You don't really understand what it looks like in practice until you're out in industry. So I felt like there's a disconnect between the study versus the actual hands-on kind of stuff that you do. And it's not until you do that you realize, is this something I actually want to do? So, and I think it's normal. You're not expected to know everything when you're young, and always we can pivot, we can change. There's nothing really fixing us to one thing. So I think there's no negative to getting exposure with education, and you're not expected to have it all figured out. And I know that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to feel like, why don't we have what other people have? But people probably just aren't speaking enough about the fact that they also may feel lost at times. Yeah,
definitely. And it's that feeling of, feeling lost as well. I love that rhetoric around education. Like there's no loss with gaining an education. Like we all want to be well knowledge, well versed, have that variety and ability to speak on certain topics or have an expertise as well. So definitely seeing that as I'm coming sort of to the tail end of university, it's like, wow, like I'm at the end of my degree. I could go on to a master's. I sort of don't want to, just prefacing, but where are the opportunities am I finding to continue to grow? And it's conversations like these where we talk to people like yourself, Gemma, who've done it and pivoted into something else. And I guess that pivot is something I do want to touch on as well. You know, like firstly, getting into a career can be so difficult, but changing an entire, from one industry to another can be even more difficult. Can you talk to us a bit about what that experience was like?
Yeah, I think the thing that holds a lot of people back from doing that is there's so many unknowns, and maybe you get really good in one role and you want to change and it feels like you have to start again. But I would say that the approach that I have learned to take is kind of just to fall forward. You figure it out as you're going, and rather than things feeling like it's, a stop or an end, you just kind of think about what can you learn from this experience and what can you do better. So if you go in with a mindset of adaptability and of finding positives and of being able to, surround yourself with people that you can ask questions for, or people that are in the position you want to be in, I feel like there's no way to really fail in that sense. You're just constantly improving what it is that you want to do. So when I think about me quitting what I was doing, I was told by multiple people that it was the wrong move. I was told that PTs are a dime a dozen. I was told that I'm leaving the security of like a 80K job, whatever it was at the time, in marketing, and the fact that I could continue to climb the corporate ladder. It was just leaving what was safe, and people didn't foresee what vision it is that I had. And I also didn't foresee what it would become, but I just knew that if I was as passionate as I was, and if I used the transferable skills from what I've got, I'm either going to fail or I'm going to succeed, but I'm never going to I never want to have the regret of not knowing. And it's kind of like I would rather live a life of passion and, the what if than, being stuck and just wishing that I did something when I could have.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I'm Yeah, I love that so much. And there's so much, I don't know. I can never put into words, I guess, how exciting the fear of the unknown is.
Yeah.
And at times, obviously, you're surrounded by a group who may be a bit more switched on, quote unquote, I'll say. But, the university scene can be so brutal and everyone's just sort of like, oh, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
What's your plan next year? What's your plan in 5 years, 10 years? Are you going to be working in that corporate job? Are you going to find a grad job, internships? And the conversation can get really, really, I guess, like, intimidating. And it's something that is really hard to navigate. And it sounds, by the looks of things, like people were in your ear about, oh, is this the right move for you? You're making a mistake. How did you navigate that? And what were you thinking to yourself?
I definitely was listening to what people were saying, and I was kind of trying as much as I could to drown it out. For your example, say you're at uni and people are saying certain things, you just have to remember that you're in one concentrated bubble of who you're allowing to have access to. But as soon as you get out of that bubble to being around entrepreneurs or being around people who are in the industry, it opens up your eyes to all of these other avenues. So sometimes we can feel like it's a lot of pressure from that environment of being at uni and hearing people in your industry. Or if I'm in a corporate environment, of course I'm going to hear voices and noise of people who are stuck in that environment. But it's not the one environment. There are other options. So as soon as I started following, speaking, going to courses, exposing myself to different people, it just didn't make it as much noise. I just didn't, I'm not going to really focus on what people have to say unless they are where I want to be. So like, no shade to where if anyone stays in a corporate job, but it's like if you're in a corporate job and if you're in one trajectory and you're saying don't do this, it's like, well, I don't want to be there. So it's not really that useful for the direction I want to go in. I respect your opinion, but I'm not going to let that keep me where I don't want to be. So I think that it's just important to take it with a grain of salt, to learn when to drown out the noise and to try to surround yourself with people who are either supporting what you want to do or giving you constructive feedback, or at least are motivating and propelling you forward, because that's a more useful conversation.
Definitely. There's a saying that the top 5 people that you're closest with are going to dictate and determine the way that you behave. So if you're surrounding yourself with 5 people who in the corporate world who, again, no shade, and completely respect that pathway as well, just not for me or yourself, from what it seems, that's the noise that you're going to hear. So what was that sort of step like, branching out, like you're completely out of your field, or maybe you're not, but you definitely would have felt that way because you don't know any better. Like, you've been in this marketing role for quite some time, and then all of a sudden you want to pursue fitness. Who are the people that you reached out to, and how'd you go about it?
Originally, I made a lot of mistakes. So I think I try to educate future coaches to avoid some of the mistakes I made, because I believe I jumped too far forward in wanting to go straight into the online space and wanting to do like really pretty marketing and things to look really good online, but I just didn't have the skill as a coach yet. So the way that I was able to become a better, more competent coach, which is then going to feed into me being able to show up online confidently because I'm backing what I'm saying, that doesn't just happen by you getting your cert 3 and 4. So one mistake that I definitely made was just focusing too much on the marketability and focusing too much on the end goal without kind of doing a lot more being actually in it, if that makes sense.
100%.
Yeah.
But and where do you think that sort of messaging or thought process came from? Because I know social media can be... Exactly. So social media can be such a big double-edged sword. I touch on it on a few podcasts, but you're sold this narrative, but it's always an end product at the end of the day. So the comparison paralysis or comparison theory, how did that affect you? Like, you jumped too far in. Did it affect you in any other ways?
So the first thing was when I initially finished, my goal was, okay, I want to go into online. I also wanted to dabble in training people in their homes, but initially that was something just I was enjoying, but logistically it didn't align with what kind of structure I wanted my day and just the amount of travel time I'd have to do. So we scratched that pretty quickly. But I would say that the comparison is what prevented me from making content sooner. And also because I had learnt what I learnt from my Cert 3 and 4, and I hadn't done too many additional courses just yet at the very infancy of me starting in the industry, I didn't know enough. So how could I felt like, how could I show up online when there are other people who have been in the space longer, et cetera, comparison. So I think the things that helped me a lot was, one, upskilling a lot. So going to different courses, learning new things, doing nutrition, going to biomechanics courses, doing the squat, bench and deadlift course by Sebastian, doing all of that stuff, which surrounded me by, one, a network of other coaches who are in a similar position to me, two, more hands-on skills, as well as just practical skills for online and face-to-face, and just working with people in class environments, in, private one-on-one, two-on-one, all of that. So I would say that trying not to jump too far forward and remembering that you do need a lot of that hands-on experience and that desire to want to keep learning more. Don't be overly confident. If you think of the Dunning-Kruger effect, when there's a graph and it's kind of like, as soon as you learn something, you have this boost of confidence, right? But it's not until time has passed that you're truly confident. So it's like, when you learn something initially, don't go around and pretend or even feel like you have a full grasp on that topic. It will take time of practical knowledge and trial and error until you truly can be that. And I think that's something that can happen with social media is, reading a study or hearing a bit of information and being like, this is the way I need to do something. And that is an issue I find with social media, because there's no nuance to things. Things are not black and white. And also things are very clickbaity online, which can cause issues. Going back to comparison though, something that really helped me show up online more is being okay with not being great at everything, but still putting content out there anyway. So what I mean by that is, you don't just understand how to edit videos by day one, but that shouldn't be the thing that stops you from editing videos. The only way, you have to do the shit to get good. And people, because of our egos, I've done it as well. You don't want to be shit because you think that's going to impact you. But the only way to get good is by going through that phase. So I think that me trying to teach myself how to use editing software, especially during lockdown, me trialing different apps, asking questions, watching YouTube videos, if I look back at the content I made a few years ago, I think that's shit. But it's like, that's the only way it can get to what I'm happy with now. And also understanding when I wanted to outsource and ask people for help.
I love that so much. We're not perfect. And it's about taking that first step. Exactly. To upskill and to create that content, to post that first piece of content as well. So many times I've looked back at my own podcast. I'm like, what are you saying, Jaden? Yeah. And even now, like, the start of the podcast was so hectic. So still learning it, but embracing it. And knowing that, you're not going to be perfect. And I think I find so much enjoyment and fulfillment out of knowing that you're always going to be chasing like a higher self. There's never going to be a time where you close that gap between I'm here, like I'm them.
And I don't want to be either, because then where's the room to grow? And you're setting this impossible standard of feeling like everything has to be 100% perfect. It doesn't really give you any leeway to make a mistake. And the only way to self-reflect is to be, acknowledge the fact that you're not going to always get it right. Yeah,
definitely. So I remember you did mention that you were a bit more introverted as well. And then all of a sudden you've sort of reached out to all these courses during the career pivot. What sort of inspired that sudden change? Like, was it the necessity to actually jump into this fitness industry, or was it, what was inspiring it?
The main inspiration was just wanting to be better and to be more confident. And I knew that the way to do that was to put myself out there more. And I went to a lot of courses shit scared, because I thought, what if somebody, asks me a question I don't know an answer and I'm in front of a group of peers, or what if something goes over my head and I don't really understand. But that was the best thing for me, because it really just threw me in the deep end, and it also made me want to be better, because when you're around people who are doing good things, it only just lifts the standard of what you're doing. So out of necessity, out of the desire to want more for myself and my business. Yeah,
brilliant. And you've grown this large following. It
doesn't feel, I mean, I'm very grateful for my followers, but I never really think of that.
No, of course not. I think like a lot of people look at numbers and it sort of relates back to that shortcut that we're sold. Like, like Gemma's already there. Like she already knew like how to do all these things. That's like why she has the followers and everything.
No.
But she's shaking her head. I love it. And like it shows like you've put in so much work, and obviously the output is like, the following, a successful business as well. Where did all the like social media sort of start for you? Like, did you just put yourself out there?
No.
Oh, no?
No.
Okay.
I actually went through this the other day. I think I might have started my account in 2015, potentially earlier, and I only posted quotes because I was too scared to show up on social media. So I'm pretty sure for 9 to 12 months of having this account, it was just like, seize the day. And all, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But just because I was starting in my fitness journey, and I was finding inspiration from like quotes and just healthy recipes and all of that. And that's all I really posted. And it wasn't until a certain time down of doing that I was like, oh, I'll actually show up, and I posted a photo of me. I think I was at an ice skating rink or something, just doing something fun with friends. And then from there, I just was like, okay, I'll post more and post more. But that didn't just happen. I didn't show up one day, post a selfie, and then start speaking really confidently or anything like that. Again, it all came down to just practice.
I love it. And let's talk about your parents a little bit as well. So you mentioned how they both didn't attend university, and I'm seeing that quite a lot. Like a lot of kids who, their parents haven't gone to university, or they've migrated over to Australia where the education opportunities are like a lot better than the circumstances that they would have come from. And obviously they're going to want you to go into that higher education and really excel in that area. Can you talk to us about the influence that your parents have had on this whole career trajectory?
Yeah, so, I mean, my dad was a tradie and my mum just didn't go to uni, but I feel like they have always kind of treated me just like with 100% support. So they always were just looking up to me and also telling me that I can do anything. So I was always feeling the support in terms of, striving well at school and whatever career I wanted to go into. And whenever I got into fitness, they were supportive of that as well, but they just didn't really foresee how they thought that might be a pivot away from what I was supposed to be doing with uni. But at the end of the day, when I did leave, they were supportive. It was just it didn't come to fruition what it was going to become at the time. Yeah. Yeah.
And that conversation of like, why are you leaving something that's so secure and so stable to pursue like entrepreneurship?
100%. Yeah. And nothing had been paved. Like I hadn't shown that I could do that before. And I also didn't have a history of doing that. So it was just a lot of unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. And for any people that are like wanting to switch out or pivot and change careers or enter something that is foreign to them, do you have any advice for them?
I would say for me, I wrote a plan of how I wanted to run my business, and then I also got guidance from other coaches and asked people in the industry and kind of had a good understanding, or I thought I did at the time, of, how I would do things. I also had a kind of plan B, plan C, if something wasn't to work, what could I fall back on while I'm building my business? And I did tell you earlier that I got into running a lot of classes initially, which was just financial stability of having 20 to 25 classes a week while I was going to courses and while I was building up other things, which worked well for me. So I think just having a game plan of what you're going to do, focusing on upskilling and getting exposure to working with lots of different people will help you pave the path and figure out what it is you want to do in the industry.
Definitely. Was it a clean cut from corporate to the fitness industry? Like, did you say one day, okay, that's it, I'm done?
It was kind of going, I have this trend that I didn't realize I do until I reflected last year that I do this. But when it comes to the end of every year, in January, I always make a big decision, December, January. I don't know if it's my brain
New Year's resolutions.
But I didn't realize I did it until I look back. But with the corporate job, it was getting towards November, December, and I was working full time and then studying my Cert 3 and 4 on the weekends and after work. And I was just from when the course was finishing, I was like, I don't really want to start a new year coming back from annual leave in this job. Like the course is finishing now, I can finish up at this job and then start the new year in a new industry. So that is just kind of the how things have been going with when I want things to finish. It made the most sense for me to start the new year in a new career. And I had all of these grand plans, but as I mentioned to you, I wanted to go into online and do all of this stuff working for myself. But when my dad got sick, I kind of pivoted and decided to go into classes and kind of put that not on the back burner, but I didn't have as much freedom and my focus was shifted during that period of time. So I did some other things before I then went back into working for myself.
Let's touch on your dad a little bit. Sorry to hear
about
him falling ill, but what was that or like, I mean, in and amongst like, I guess this sort of career pivot, and you trying to find your way, but then having to look after someone who's looking after you?
Yeah. So that was such an interesting and uncharted territory. You can't really explain to somebody what that's like. It's just really hard to kind of get that across, like the emotion and the experience. But essentially, so my game plan was to finish work in my corporate job in November, December, and then to start off online coaching in January. I'd booked like a photo shoot and I had all of these plans, and then my dad did FIFO, fly in, fly out work, and he had messaged me and said he's coming, and I knew his schedule, and he said, oh, I'm coming home, I think it was like on a Thursday, which was quite abrupt, which was kind of a bit strange. And I picked him up from the station or the airport, and then he said, oh, I've got to go and get a scan or something along those lines. And then fast forward, we went to that appointment and they said, you've got a terminal illness. And then they drew a graph and they said, you're here, this is a 12-month mark, this is the likelihood of you making it 12 months. And it didn't last longer than really 6 to 9 months on that graph. So when you go through something like that, there's just so many levels. There's like shock, anger, desperation, making the most of the time that you have. It's really just so many things coming at once. But for me, I had all of these plans, but none of that really matters when you're looking after someone you love. Like I'd wait as long as I need to wait because my priority was not my business at that time. So that whole year just kind of took a shift. I decided that I wanted to do classes because, again, I could clock in, clock out, and then I could drive my dad to chemo during the day or whatever I needed to do. And that's how we kind of survived that year. But I wouldn't take that back for anything. Like, you know, the time that I got to spend with him, it was an honor. So it is, yeah, it's just part of the journey.
Yeah, it's a brilliant thing, and life is like such a fragile thing if you 100%. Think about it. Like any day could be your last, and it's one of those things where you should cherish the relationships that you have with the loved ones that you have as well.
And it also made me think about fitness, health, and making sure we're doing what we want to do with our lives. It just amplified that for me because for him, when he got sick, he was mentioning that he wanted to join the gym again, and then he started juicing and wanting to eat healthier again. And I mean, I would support whatever he wanted to do during that time, but as an outsider looking in, it felt so reactive because, again, it was too late. And that's just part of what you're going through there. It's fine. But no, I was just saying that reactivity to food and to training is something that I am super aware of and wanting people to... Sorry, thank you. I'm just super aware of wanting to educate people on being proactive with health and fitness just based on that experience that I have had and just exposure to other people that have been sick. I just really want people to cherish their health and fitness and to make it a priority because it's such a quality of life booster. And also in terms of making sure you're doing what you want, we never know when the end is going to be. So it is really important to me that if you do have the ability to be able to pivot and to change careers and you want more for yourself, to make sure you are going for more and not feeling like you are stuck because, again, you don't want to live a life or wait until a certain point because maybe you won't be able to change again in the future. So make sure you're doing what you want to do now.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
We're so privileged to live in Australia as well. Like
so much privilege. I'm fully aware of it. Yeah.
100%. Like so grateful for the opportunities that like my parents have given me to be able to explore opportunities such as podcasting, and just, doing something that actually lights me up and something that I enjoy. Making the most of it and exploring your youth as well, I think is like so important. Or even not being reactive to it. So it's like if you're slaving away at something that you don't really enjoy, where are we looking to explore something that you do actually enjoy? And I think people might disagree, but I like working, especially if it's something that I'm passionate about and I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you relate with as well. Yeah.
And I think work-life balance as well, so we can enjoy what we're doing and love what we're doing and feel really driven. But I also don't want to feel any guilt and I want to go all for enjoying my time with friends, having time off work and making sure that is a big part of quality of life and creating memories and making sure my loved ones know how much they're appreciated because that's just something that is so prevalent to me, is just wanting to make sure that that is the forefront of my mind, because again, you never know when, how long we have on this earth, and I want to make sure people know that they're loved, and I want to make sure I have a good quality of life and I'm not just working for the sake of working.
Definitely. How do you go about that? Like navigating work-life balance. It's such a buzzword, I reckon. Like everyone just whips it out here. Like even companies are saying, you'll have good work-life balance, but what does that actually mean, and what does it look like to you?
For me, it means structuring my week in a way that is productive, but then also allows for clocking off, phone going on do not disturb. It means that on the weekends I am trying to minimize as much kind of laptop and work stuff. In saying that, if I have some big goal I'm working towards, I'm probably going to blur the lines there because it's a short-term stint. But as an overarching work-life balance, it looks like 2 face-to-face days, Monday to Tuesday, which are back-to-back, so they're as best of use of my time as possible. It's working from home the other days. It's starting the day with a walk and a coffee. It's putting my phone on do not disturb at 5 or 6, and it's, enjoying my weekends. That's what that looks like for me.
Amazing. And I think like the typical stereotype of entrepreneurs is like, wake up at 5, get your work done, do everything, and then go to bed really late and then wake up again. Is that what your life looks like?
I definitely enjoy waking up early when I'm in a good routine with that, but I don't want to, wake up early, go to bed at 11 p.m. on my computer. I mean, I could do that, but I know that I would burn out and I would probably start to not enjoy what I'm doing. So I'm aware of the fact that my creativity and my drive comes from creating space from what I'm doing. So having downtime. And I know that when I have done the opposite, because I have been the other end of the spectrum of working, 7 or 8 classes a day and then losing my voice. And then when I do have spare time, being so cooked that I don't have any time to give to a social setting for myself. So I know what that feels like, and I just know that the fact that I want to be in this industry for a long time, I need to give myself that balance.
100%. It's about venturing down to burnout,
yes,
essentially, and then venturing to like, am I doing enough? And then you sort of know that equilibrium and that nice in between that works for yourself.
Yeah, and if you are identifying, because there will be periods of time where you're just grinding, right? Because you've got a certain goal, but I think it's checking in on yourself. If you are doing that, of what things can you do to, like, do you need to have a night away somewhere, or do you need to, give yourself a day off? Because when that does happen, you want to be able to trigger the fact that you need to do a little bit more self-care, and you need to have yourself a little bit more rest to be able to keep going on.
100%. And I guess like as an entrepreneur, oh my gosh, stumbling over my words. The work-life balance is so important, and optimizing sort of your efficiencies and how to become more productive with your time, and just sort of navigating, being able to optimize like that 1 hour that you're given or that half hour that you're given. Do you have any apps that you use or routines or rituals that you live by?
So I could definitely be a big procrastinator if I was left unhinged, but I find that having a list and having a calendar which is blocked out has really helped me, and also using timers. So usually on a Sunday, I'll use a physical diary, week to a page, and I'll write what I'm doing on each day. And I use Calendly to book in my face-to-face sessions so my clients get a reminder, and that's all automated. So those kinds of systems help me be more streamlined and know what's to come, which really helps. And then in addition to that, in my calendar, which all of that syncs to, I will block out training for an hour and a half or training for an hour. And I have found that a combination of physical diary with reminders, and also utilizing, if I have a big goal, I'll utilize like a whiteboard, and I'll have that on my fridge, and it will have whatever I'm trying to tick off. If there's some like big thing that I'm working towards, so it's at the forefront of my mind, because it works as a visual cue that I see multiple times a day, and that really helps with motivation. And then lastly, being more productive, just doing like 30 to 60 minute stints on my laptop when I'm doing check-ins, and then just getting up, moving around has really helped as well.
Brilliant. I love always like listening to how people structure their lives and make it a bit more productive. Like everyone's so busy these days, like quote unquote, like 21st century. Everyone's got shit to do. So always keen to listen to that part. I wanted to discuss sort of the networking aspect of both coaching and also the corporate world. Such a pivotal concept in today's day and age. Like everyone is so connected. I don't know if you've heard of like the 7 wonders of the world and how everyone's sort of connected through 7 sort of relationships that you might hold. But yeah, like networking allows you to stumble across brilliant people. Like you've entered sort of the summit on Channel 9. I definitely want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know you don't talk about how like your following defines you, but like you've cultivated a large following, which is pretty difficult to do for some people, because that means people are like subscribing to the message that you're putting out, and they fuck with your content, really.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much, like just in short. But how pivotal has networking been both in the corporate world and also like in the fitness industry now?
Yeah, I think going to courses, and even when I worked in an office, I remember our office had some sort of relationship with LinkedIn, and they've got an office in the city, and I think they might have done some sort of course with LinkedIn. But I remember going to a seminar that they were running, and I was their marketing person, and I didn't know anybody, and I actually sat in my car and made a video at the time, and this would have been like 6 or 7 years ago, just saying, whether you're confident or not, a stranger's not going to know. It's all going to be just how you come across. So something that I was trialing and I wanted to see how that would work in that setting was just rocking up to this thing and walking around and introducing myself to people, because as far as they're concerned, I'm super confident, even if I'm shitting myself. And my tell is when I'm anxious, I get a rash, like a heat rash on my chest and on my neck. And like, I just was like, I'll wear a turtleneck. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? So like in that setting, it was just kind of like, okay, they're not going to know any different. I just need to put myself out there. I'm probably not going to see these people again. And I was just putting in the practice of showing up that way until I felt that way. And I think that, again, I got a lot of skills from doing that. And then from courses, again, you don't know anybody, but I also put myself in their point of view, and I'm thinking they're probably thinking the same thing. All it takes is a conversation. And also I just kind of try as hard as I can to read people. So whenever I do get put in a situation like that, I'll look at their body language and how they respond to like an initial question, and if they're open to starting a conversation. So if I was to go to something, I would be like, hi, how are you? Or I'd ask them something in common, and then see how we go from there, because either they don't give me much and then I'm like, that's okay, that person's not for me, or, which has happened so often, people I still follow 3 to 4, 5 years on that I've been at a course, is just because I have been friendly to them and we've maintained a relationship. So my tips would just be to put yourself out there, to gauge that interaction, and don't be afraid to initiate it, because there's so much upside and very little downside in doing so. And from the experiences of me doing that, like Kate Morris, who I now have a podcast with, Oi Let's Talk, that all happened because I DM'd her and I just knew that we had a lot in common and we hit it off, and now she's like my ride or die. So it's just kind of like, if I didn't DM her, like so many other things wouldn't have eventuated from that. And I have multiple other examples of things like that happening to me.
100%. 80% of the time, they're probably waiting for you to initiate that first step as well.
Yeah. It's like a first date. I don't know what's going on.
100%. And it's like that university conversation, just to flip it back onto that lens. Like everyone just sits in the tutorials, just quiet, sort of minding their own business. And it's like, guys, we're literally doing the same course. Like this is common ground. Yep. Why are we not talking and discussing about this? Like, why is everyone so reluctant to reach out and just chat?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be about the content or anything. Like just chat. We're here. Like we're present. We go into the tutorials and everything. So yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And on the flip side, like I used to think, oh, if they don't reply or if they don't respond, that is poor on how I responded. But then now I think even deeper, and I'm like, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they've got stuff on. So it really doesn't have to mean much. It's either you say hi and it goes well, or it doesn't, but move on. Don't like ruminate on things like that.
100%. That's like how we started talking. Like I reached out and said, hey, how you doing? Yeah. And then now we're doing a podcast together.
100%. Everything is just a series of, actions and just your decision to kind of make new connections.
Definitely. Lots of upside.
Yeah.
I love that tip as well. And I think like it can be so applicable to any situation as well. People are always wanting someone else to make that first move. So why not take the initiative and do it?
And I think a lot of people kind of want the end result of that. They want the network or the new friendships or the business to thrive, but so much of that comes from you being vulnerable and you just being willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
100%. Now, the summit.
Yes.
Talk to us a bit about it. What got you into it and what's come out of it as well?
Again, let's slide back to the DM. Someone DM'd me and said, I think you'd be good for this, just like somebody who knew that there was a casting for it. And my opinion with going into so many things is I try to talk them down. So like if any opportunity comes to me, I'll be like, yeah, that's cool, but I just won't tell anyone, or I won't really celebrate it yet because it just avoids the disappointment if it doesn't come to fruition. So for that, I thought, oh yeah, cool, like I didn't even know really what it was. And then I applied and then I was like, yeah, I just forgot about it. And then they're like, oh, they loved your interview. And I thought, okay. And then there was a whole lot of other stages there. And before I knew it, I was flying to New Zealand. And I told everybody that I was in Bali. And because I'm so present on social media, I just put up a story. I was like, just having a break from socials.
Oh, classic.
And then everyone at gym, because I literally live at Emerge, they were saying, where's Gem? And then I told a few key people that I was going to Bali and they're like, she's in Bali. So anyways, that was a whole funny thing. But essentially I was on a TV show with a bunch of strangers and it was nothing I've ever experienced before or had exposure to. And I am not well travelled. I've never been to New Zealand before and I've never travelled into another country by myself. So there was just so many layers to that. And it was the first season, so there was nothing for me to base it on. I couldn't watch previous episodes to say, what's the context going to be like? So I just trained for a hike. I just trained for the physical aspect. So I kind of pivoted from the strength stuff that I was doing into running and the 1,000 steps and all of that. And then I just gave it a crack. And I came out from it with such a unique experience. It was the first season. I made a bunch of new friends that I will remain friends with, and it's just really hard to explain what that is like, just going into that situation, doing these obstacles, being around people 24/7, but I loved the experience overall.
Incredible.
Yeah. Such a strange.
Yeah, literally. It's just like, oh yeah, I did that. Like
Yeah.
I went on national television and completed the so it's a hike, is it?
Yeah, so there's so much more to it than that. But the summary is essentially 14 people, you've got a backpack with $77,000 in each backpack, roughly. Don't quote me on that. And you get dropped at the bottom of a mountain, and then Jai Courtney, who is the host and is also on Suicide Squad and other movies, he essentially is kind of showing up at different places and telling you different things. But essentially you start hiking, the objective is to get to the top of the summit, and as you're going along there is a whole lot of things that go on. There is crossing a rickety bridge, and then a helicopter comes and says, all right, the people who have made it to the bridge so far have to decide who gets cut from the other side. And then you just have to constantly make all of these decisions on the whim, and it was mentally super, super tough, and physically was tough because of the terrain. It wasn't a path. It was actually going through hiking terrain. Yeah. So many things happened. Climbing, I went across a bridge and then a helicopter came and the wind was kind of moving what I was doing, and slipped. There was climbing up a high vertical that was unstable, and then getting to the top of my forearms were absolutely cooked, but I just had to pull myself over. There was sleeping in a swag in New Zealand, the most beautiful places I've ever seen. But that whole thing, that moment is just such a big thing that I never would have experienced. It was crazy. And there was one place, before I got voted out, there was one place we went through that was just this valley, and there was 30 or 40 waterfalls on every side, and we just put our backpacks down and as a group just went under the waterfall. And that is such a core memory of mine, just thinking I'm in New Zealand on a TV show underneath a waterfall. What the hell?
That is just the most absurd, hey, art of networking, everybody.
Coming back to networking, all that was opening a DM and applying for something that I didn't think I would have got on.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Just I don't even know where to go from there.
Yeah, and again, the friends that I'm going to visit. Indy, who was on the show, I'm going to go to Tassie to visit her soon. These are people that I value their connection that I wouldn't have met because they're in another state.
Oh, that's so good, Gemma.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm actually lost. Let's talk.
Yeah.
I sort of want to talk about this. I haven't got another podcast host on the podcast before.
Yes.
How hard is podcasting?
Podcasting's so hard, and I am not going to pretend that I am an expert on it. Kate is definitely the goat out of both of us in the podcasting. It has been such a good experience, but there's just so much to learn, and also I'm always wanting to improve. So I think that I'm proud of the content that we're putting out there, but I'm also excited for how it's going to continue to grow. We've got big plans.
Definitely. Can you talk to the listeners a bit about what Oi Let's Talk is?
Yeah, so Oi Let's Talk is hosted by myself and Kate Morris, and it is a podcast talking about business and coaching more broadly, but then also it is more casual in the sense of Q&As from listeners, talking about common themes within our industry, and we will also have guest speakers and other things coming up as well. So we do have a clear topic with each podcast, which is really fun, and then we also ask listeners to give us questions to speak on as well. Amazing.
And what have you sort of learnt throughout your whole podcasting journey? I know we spoke a little bit off air about, just sort of filling in the silence or acting as if podcasting was like an actual sort of, I don't know how to phrase it, not an actual conversation, but like an in real life sort of conversation.
The thing that I was saying to you that I was struggling with is when somebody speaks to me, I try to actively listen, and I will say something, whether that be, 100%, or whatever it may be. But as they're talking, I will just confirm that I'm listening and just kind of do that constantly. But when you're running a podcast and both of your voices are so clear, it kind of sounds like you're talking over them. In addition to that, when you fill the void with saying that is distracting. So now I'm trying as hard as possible, still working on it, is when I want to say I will just create a bit of space and not say anything. Brilliant. Which is fine. I just did it.
It's one of those things.
Practice makes
perfect. Communication is such a skill. It is such a. See, I'm like stumbling now. Oh, I'm stumbling now, but see, it's just like it just happens. So communicating and being clear and vocal and being able to articulate yourself is such a skill. You'll notice if you ever see like this camera angle, I'm just nodding my head. And I sort of have to reaffirm to the listener, or the guest, that I'm listening. I just won't fill in the silence or go, yes, and 100%, and reaffirming them.
And I think that body language you were saying is something that I'm learning to do more of as well, which is in other non-verbal ways explaining that I am listening and knowing when it is my time to ask another question and so on. But it's just a learning in progress. There's a whole back end part that people probably don't factor in, which is, you're doing the editing, the recording, the setting up the space. A lot of things have to go right for that. And then when it comes to the pretty clippets on social media, we've got help doing that now, but previously doing all of that is time consuming within itself. So there's a couple layers to it that I think that when you see the polished end product, people don't realize the involvement to get to that as well.
Definitely. I want to end on sort of content creation and where you get your ideas from and where you see sort of Uplift going, and also Oi Let's Talk.
Yeah.
Where do you get your ideas from?
So from client content, I used to try, and when I wanted to appeal to being an authority, speaking to the things that I'm passionate about, I think that I missed the mark by it trying to make it too polished or trying to speak to other coaches, right? And most of my clients are gym newbies, gen pop women. So I think that something that I've learned is to just make content related to the questions that they're asking me, not try to reinvent the wheel, and not to try to be too fancy with the language that I'm using. So I'll use an example because I'm filming educational content this Saturday, and I know that I'm going to do that. So for the last month, I have just been, I don't know if you see this, but just making notes with a dot point.
Brilliant.
So every time I get asked a question by a client, or I have a check-in with the client and someone says, what about this? I just think that's content. So I think that I've tried to overcomplicate things before by trying to, again, reinvent the wheel or come up with a new spin on things. But what I need to connect and to make, valuable content for the people that I want to help is basically just, use the day-to-day things that I'm getting asked and making that into things. So that's where I'm getting my content from at the moment, is from my clients. And then for Oi, Let's Talk, there's just always things we can talk about, like things that will happen in our industry. I'll just message Kate and then we'll just say, let's add that to the list. So it seems pretty free flowing because we're constantly surrounded by other people. So we're constantly getting inspiration from that as well.
Take notes, everybody. I did a podcast with Ben Hargreaves, and so he's a car photographer. He said, document, don't create. And that is exactly what you're living and breathing as well. So clients are sending in questions, bang, that's another content that I have to do. It's not like, oh, I've invented this clickbaity tricep, superset, tricep sort of thing that is going to change your life. And
I've trialed like headings being clickbaity before, as in just like, you know, I've used the word spicy once. Like there's nothing that spicy about it, but it's still, the content is still what people are asking for. And it's not speaking in black and white terms of this is the only way, which I'm super aware of trying to avoid doing. And I think that it feels a lot less pressure when we just realize that content is all around us, and to be relatable and to create connection, people just want to see what you're doing and how you can help them. So speaking in terms of it being more relaxed, I think actually translates better online.
Amazing.
Amazing.
What's been the most rewarding part about this career pivot of yours? It happened how many years ago?
What are we now? 6 years.
6 years ago. Incredible. What would you say if you could pin it down to sort of one encapsulating message or thought? What has that been? Like, what's been the most rewarding thing?
I think the fact that I have created a business that allows me to help women and have a lifestyle that supports being able to live more flexibly, the work-life balance that I want, while also doing something I really enjoy and by being able to make an impact. So that would be the biggest thing. I get to wake up every day. I look forward to what I'm doing. Monday is not a bad day. Monday is an awesome day because I get to start my week again. And I think having those positive associations with the direction I'm going in just makes me feel like I'm so aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing.
Do you see an end to Uplift?
No, I think it will just constantly pivot. Like I've done a few things in this industry now, and I'm sure I'll look back in 5 years' time and be like, wow, I'm doing something, slightly different. Like I've done the classes, I've worked as an employee for someone before, I've done the at-home, the online, the face-to-face. I've done a bunch of different things, and I think that my goal would just be to continue to expand in different ways, to find different things I'm enjoying doing. And I also want to keep doing courses and also just trying a few different avenues, because I think I'll always do obviously coaching women, but I think that will continue to expand in different ways, and I want to be able to make a bigger impact.
Final question. Is there a reason you don't coach people other than women?
I think when it comes to showing up online and creating content, I think it's good to be really clear with who this is directed towards. So that's point one. I enjoy coaching women, and that's kind of helping to know exactly what it is that I'm working towards with marketing efforts. And secondly, like I've had some just weird DMs. So if I can just avoid any awkward kind of experiences, and I just want to foster an environment that feels really good. I don't really want to train someone who says something creepy and then asks if I can coach them.
Do better, men, please. Seriously.
I have some things to show you after this.
But no, I love it. It's like niching down and not spreading yourself too thin as well. Classic marketing student. And
you don't need to know and service everybody. That's also really important. Like if somebody comes to me, I've said this before, and says, I want to prep for a competition, I'll say, look, there's some really good comp prep coaches, but I'm not one of them. And I would refer on. And I think that that's actually good, because it's like you'll get really good at what you do and the problems of the demographic that you're servicing when that's what you're focusing on with your efforts with marketing.
I love that so much. And like as trainers, like people pivot, change, want to do different things, like try a 45, try PT, try powerlifting, bodybuilding. There's just so many different domains that you can venture into.
Which is awesome.
Which is incredible. And I think you can't capture them all as well. And you can't approach any industry like that as well.
Yeah, and I think if you try to do too many, then you'll probably fall short with some of the skills for all of them. It's hard to do everything really well, or at least I found that in my case. So I think that it is good to, not just do it all because you think that might be an advantage in marketing, because it's not necessary. I've seen people be super, super niche with who they want to help, and they're super, super busy.
Amazing. Gemma, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Having you on the podcast. I've enjoyed learning a bit about you, and we'll see the I've enjoyed it thoroughly, like chatting about, I guess, how you've navigated your life from being so driven and having uni as that higher self goal, and then noticing that, hey, look, I don't see too much fulfillment going further into this, despite people talking in my ear about, but you're leaving security and stability, and what about the money aspect as well, but finding something that you truly loved, and the reinforcement about your dad being ill and how that has shaped the way that you view reactiveness and proactiveness as well has been incredible. Also the networking segment, I really enjoyed that. So thank you so much for sharing your story. If there's anything you want to leave for the listeners, this is your time to shine.
Thank you again for having me. And if you'd like to find me, the best place would just be on Instagram at Coach Gemma.
Beautiful. Be sure to follow at Life with Lamb podcast on Instagram, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.